Look at this, mate. Look at this hair. Pirate chic. Pirate chic. Life's a struggle. Hair's a struggle. Fuck it. It's all a struggle. This video is going to be dedicated to the 4 biggest struggles I faced in growing my hair and 4 things I think you should be aware of throughout the growing process. So the first one we'll start with is probably the one that you'll notice first. And that is essentially during the growing process, there'll come a point where you'll suddenly feel very aware that you don't look as good as you did the last time you had a haircut. And that's further exaggerated by the fact that people will find excuses to tell you essentially that you look bad, or they'll find ways to subtly imply that, that you look worse than you did before. And it's okay because you can understand why people do it. And it's okay because it's intrinsic within human nature to want to put other people down to make yourself feel better. But at the same time, it's hard because you begin to feel very aware that you don't look good. So for me, it took about 6 months, I'd say, before people really started to highlight the fact that my hair was growing to me. So I went from having essentially a short quiff that I sometimes wore as a side parting to really just having a bit of a shaggy mop of curly hair. And I felt very conscious of the fact that because the sides are growing in my hair, I'd really lost all definition of my face. And my face went from being relatively square and relatively chiseled to kind of just being like a round blob because the longer sides kind of made my head kind of shape like that. And people constantly highlighted the fact that my hair was curly, and people constantly highlighted the fact that my hair was long and told me that it was funny, or told me that quite frankly, that it just looked bad. Or people would subtly drop into conversation like a snide comment about curly hair. And it is hard because at the same time you think to yourself, I could just cut it, I could feel better in myself, and I could cut it and other people wouldn't have a reason to really put me down. But it's about staying kind of true to yourself, and it's about kind of looking ahead and thinking of the long-term goal. But around about 6 months, you'll start to feel very conscious of the fact that your hair is no longer short. And it's worse because it's such a long time before your hair will start to look good again. Like, I can be honest and I can say that really for the 6 months to first year of growing my hair, I kind of looked a little bit shit. And I kind of can see why people used to laugh, but you just have to ignore that and you just have to stay true to your guns. Number 2, and this will link in quite heavily with the first one, but long hair is not the social norm. So by that I mean a lot of people will challenge you, and in some cases maybe even dislike elements of you just because you're doing something that they don't seem to be the social norm. So to give you a really good example of that, last Christmas I was walking from my office to get the train home from work, and I walked past a guy that was maybe 5 to 10 years older than me. And as I was walking past him, he turned, he looked at me up and down, and he went, faggot, and then carried on walking. And at the time I was really quite shocked by that and really quite upset by that, because I couldn't understand that just because of the way I looked, because he had nothing else to gauge me by, I had managed to evoke or kind of create that much animosity within him. And I remember thinking, like, what should I do? Should I cut my hair? Should I change this about myself? Or should I try and look more quote unquote manly? But at the same time, you have to be aware that when people say things like that or people react to you like that, it says so much more about them than it does about you. But it will be a consistent thing throughout the process. People will throw shade, people will make comments, and people will judge you so much just because there's something about you that isn't what they deem to be normal. Number 3, growing your hair long is a journey and not a destination. So by that, what I mean is really during the process, your hair's never actually going to be in a set style. So for example, when cutting my hair, I could go into a barber and I could take a picture and I could say, I want a side part cut in, or I want a disconnected undercut, or I want a skin fade. Or I could even take in a picture of a celebrity and say, I want my hair like that. And by him cutting my hair in that particular way, my hair is now in a style. Whereas when you're growing your hair, because you're constantly thinking of the future, you always have to think of what your hair will look like. But the byproduct of that is that your hair is never ever anything apart from in the growing phase, or your hair is never ever in a style because you're growing it. So really, you spend a lot of time constantly trying to find a different way to wear your hair during the process. And it can be a bit of a struggle because I look back at some photos of me and I'm like, what the fuck was I thinking when I tried that? Or I look back at other photos and I think, fuck mate, that was not good. That was not ideal. And I think it's the reason why the man bun is such a kind of key stage in the growing process, because it really is the first time that your hair actually does kind of conform to, or your hair can actually be put into a style. But it seems to honestly take forever to get there. And then on top of that, the man bun is still, even when you're there, you still have little flake outs, and it's still a struggle to even keep it as a style then. Number 4, it's actually kind of hard to style long hair. So I've got to be honest and say that in 2 and a bit years of growing it, I'm actually yet to find a consistent way of styling it that I like. And during that time, I've tried sea salt spray, I've tried various hair powders, I've tried various pomades, I've tried mousse. I've actually spent a fair bit of money on products on the way, and none of them have really found a way of getting it looking the way that I like consistently. And then the other side of that as well is, and I'm sure a lot of women can relate to this as well, adverse weather conditions can really fuck it up along the way. So I can leave my house, walk to my drive, which is a 15-second walk from my front door, and in that time there's a gust of wind and my hair's gone from looking relatively on point to making me look like I've just backcombed it and done 7 lines of heroin on the way. Or I can go for a 2-minute walk, in that time get caught in a light shower, and my hair's gone from looking absolutely fine to shaggy, curly, poodle, what the fuck is wrong with this guy kind of situation. So it's very hard to have consistent days where you think, actually I kind of like it, or have consistent days where you think, actually my hair's kind of nailed today. But I mean, you get used to it and you do find things that can work. So for me, I've found the best way to actually style my hair is actually just to wash it and then let it dry naturally. But that's a problem because I can't do that on a consistent day-to-day basis in the interest of time. So you have to work around it, and you have to kind of really think of, I suppose, different ways to wear it based on the scenario. Despite everything I've said in this video though, if you are genuinely curious to see what you look like with long hair, or you look at other guys with long hair and you think, actually that's pretty cool, I kind of want to see what that would look like, I would definitely advise you try growing your hair out at least once. Because for me, regardless of whether I cut it, I'm still happy that I did it, I'm still happy that I tried it. And even now, despite everything I've said, I'm still pretty happy with the result of how it looks.